I like that. So do you do that in the morning? Do you look in the mirror in the morning and ask it a question or tell yourself something? Have you got a routine in a mirror?
I do. Yeah, every morning, and I learned this from some training that I took last year. And so my training that I took with Emergo Academy, who my coaches are based out of Canada, Dave and Susan Kenny. We're all about the brain first approach, right? It's about retraining our brain. All my life, I thought our brains controlled us. Well, actually, it's wrong. It's the other way around. We actually control our own brain. We can control our thoughts. We can control our choices. It's all on us. And it takes time to learn how to change that, right? Because society has trained us to be a certain way. And
Mm,
I took some extra training last year, right around the end of the year. And it was also talked about the brain first approach. You hear a lot of people say, when they go into recovery, it was the hardest thing they ever done, but actually it was the easiest thing that they ever did. And the
yeah.
only reason why it was the hardest thing that they ever did because they're the ones that made it so hard.
Yep.
And then once you get to
Mm,
that certain point, you realize, well, this is somewhat fairly easy,
mm,
as long as we keep this where this needs to be. And so, yeah, and that was brought up in our training. It's like the guy who was teaching the class says, every morning I get up and I look at myself in the mirror and I look at myself eye to eye and I tell myself that I love you and I tell myself that I'm amazing and I'm great and I'm awesome and I'm going to change lives and I'm going to continue to change my life and I'm so grateful for what I have, you
mm.
know. Um, and I live in a 31-foot camping trailer in my mom's backyard. We're on an acre here. I'm 62 and live in a frickin' camping trailer. It's very basic, very simple. It's a piece of cake, but I didn't picture myself being there right now. I figured I'd have my
Mm.
nice, big, beautiful home and my beautiful yard, and I haven't had a house. We lost our house in 2010. I haven't had a house since, you know, and it took some time. It took some time going, I am grateful because when my past wife ended up being homeless, that really hit my heart, to see these individuals downtown that don't have a home. They live in a tent or they live, they sleep behind a garbage can or wherever they choose. And I'm like, I am so freaking so grateful and so blessed that I have a roof over my head. I have a bed to lay my head down at night.
Mm.
I have food in my stomach. And so I'm grateful and filled with gratitude. And I've told some people who say, "Yeah, I'm filled with gratitude as well." And then you hang around with them and then you hear them bitch and complain about things throughout the day. And it's like, "Well, you're not full of gratitude then." They're like, "No, I am." It's like, "Well, it's impossible to be filled with gratitude and then bitch and complain about shit."
Mm.
Those
Yep.
2 go hand in hand, right? Be grateful for what we have or what you have. And when we do that, I tell you what, life has just changed so much for me, and getting that message in the mirror every morning, having that morning routine, it has changed so much. And I've shared it with people that I mean, I've been going to this gym for so long. We kind of have like our own little gym family, and I was sharing it with some people a while back. And one of my friends, Kelly, she came up to me a couple months ago and says, "Al, I started doing what you said you do in the morning." And she goes, "Thank you so much for sharing that with me because it has literally changed my days."
Mm.
And I heard a podcast that Jay Shetty interviewed Madonna, and Madonna has been studying a thing called Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is like a very high spiritual type where you really tap into spirituality of yourself and the universe. And we're not talking like manifesting stuff. It's just very, very spiritual.
Mm.
And she says, we have all been put here to receive so we can share. And I found that to hit me so freaking hard in the heart, because it's people like yourself, right? For doing this show, the Brave Man Project, right? You're bringing males on that have had hard issues in their life and have somehow found the resilience to work themselves through it. You're allowing them a place to come on your show and use their voice because somebody out there needs to hear it, and
Mm.
somebody will. And And Jay Shetty talks about how the whole universe is set up that way. Everything is set up to give or to receive and share. I mean, constantly, right? We have the sun. Why do we have the sun? The sun helps different things grow, right? We have trees that give oxygen, and we have plants that give us food and fruits and different things like that. And this is just how the universe is set up, and we are no different.
Mm.
At least my version of it. And the more that we can receive in our knowledge, the more that we can give. I mean, we talked about it before the show. What we love about doing podcast is really, it is a lot for us.
Oh
I
yeah.
told I used to do my show on Thursdays, and people asked if I did therapy, and I said no. And then all of a sudden I went, "Oh yeah, I do therapy every Thursday." And they're like, "Really?
Mm.
Who do you go to?" I'm like, "It's my podcast." Like, "What?" And I'm like, "My
Mm.
guests is therapy because I learn something from my guests all the time, just like I'm sure you do,
Oh
right?" And
god,
I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I'm gonna implement that into my life," right?
Mm.
However, if we didn't have things like this, we'd all be stuck still.